So now that we understand about variables, we understand all about the basic operations and so forth, it's time for us to understand the other side of programming, which is actually also equally very important. Because again, programming allows us to create logic, and that logic will have what we call control flow. So we can control what needs to run and what doesn't need to run and so forth. Okay, so this is going to be about control flow, at least the introduction. Okay, so let's start with if statements. So if statements will allow us to get that control flow that we were talking about, right? So if this is true, then that should work. Now, going back to what I just said, I said if this is true, then this happens. Remember that there's got to be some sort of relational operation between variables, right? And if this is true, what would that be? That would be a Boolean, right? So the if statements, we need to pass an expression inside, right? A relational operation for that matter, which will then return something if it's true or false so that a certain piece of code is run. Now, let's go ahead and create our first if statement here. So I'm going to say if. There it is. The moment you say enter, it will give those parentheses. What that means is that inside here, we are now going to add an expression. So anything that makes sense programmatically, it's considered an expression, right? So in this case here, I'm going to say if, for instance, A is equal to B, then we're going to do something. So it's going to go ahead and look at if statement. So the compiler is going to go ahead and look at the if statement and is going to look inside of this expression here. It's going to say if A is equal to B. Now notice first two things. First of all, we haven't created A nor have we created B, those variables. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to say double A is equal to 13, double B is 11. Okay. Now, notice everything is great. It also says here, if you hover over, it says condition A equal B is always false. Very good. We will get into that. Now, notice also that we have those two equal signs there. Those equal signs are not equal signs of assignment, meaning when we talked about this equal sign, we call this assignment. Right? Because we are assigning whatever is to the right into whatever is to the left. So in this case, we're assigning 13 to variable A. The same thing, 11 to variable B. So in this case, here, we're not assigning B to A. What we're doing, we're actually comparing. So when we say double equals now, we are talking about comparison. So this is comparison, okay? As part of all of these are what we call relational operators. Okay. Why are they relational? Well, they're relational because we are relating two items. We're relating A to B. So we're saying if A is equal to B. So we are relating, right? If you're comparing two things, we are relating those two things together and see if it's true or not. So it goes without saying that whatever we put, the expression we put inside here will always return or be transformed into a Boolean, right? That's the reason why it says false here. Because when I say if this is true, then this has to happen. So if this expression inside A is equal to B, then whatever's inside our braces here, curly braces, is going to run. So I'm going to say S out or system out. I'm going to say indeed. Like that. Okay. Now, if this is not true, something needs to happen, right? Because we are creating this control flow. We're controlling the flow of our code. So I can say also else, in case this doesn't show up to be true, this expression here, we're going to run something else. So S out, not true. Okay. Let's give it a run here and see what's going to happen. Well, it says not true. Why? Because A is not equal to B. 13 is not 11. Okay? So we learn about our first comparison, which is a relational operator. Now, we can also use another relational operator here called not, which means it's the opposite of true. In this case, a not would be exclamation mark and equal. Like that. So this would mean not. So how do we do that? So if I go ahead and put here exclamation mark, A is not B, then this happens. What's going to happen? Let's save this and run. It says indeed. Why is it indeed? Because this expression here is true, because A is not equal to B. 13 is not equal to 11. That's why indeed is showing. And of course, this else is disregarded because it never runs. Why would it? Because we always say it only runs when it's true, right? If it's true, this runs. This expression is true. That's why this runs. Else, this doesn't run. Okay? Very good. So now you learn to the not. So it's exclamation mark and equal. That means not. Okay? And we have the comparison. There are times that we can also use the exclamation to negate. So if I want to negate, I can just use the exclamation mark like that. This is negation, if you will. So we're saying it is not. So we're taking, whenever we append the not or the exclamation mark to a variable, we're saying the opposite of what it is. That would be more visible if we actually have a boolean. So I'm going to say boolean as such is false or is aged. Just to change names here, I'm going to put it true. So now I can come down here and say is aged. Let's save this and run. This should be true. That's why we saying indeed, right? Because we said the boolean is true. Now check this out. If I put an exclamation mark before the aged, if you save this and run, we can say not true, because now, even though is age is true, but because we appended the exclamation mark as such, it's going to return a false, which means it runs the else. Because this is false, therefore, this won't run. It's going to jump out and go into the else. Okay? There we go. So now you've learned about the comparison first, and then we learn about the not operator, and we also learned the negation. So these are very important relational operators because it allows us to do all sort of things. Now, this is a very simplistic example, obviously, but hopefully you can start seeing the power that you have by using these operators. All right, so what I want you to do is to play around with this concept here and print out several different kinds of messaging on the screen depending on the validity or whether it's true or false of these variables that you can create at the top here. Just play with this and see what you come out with. I'll see you next.